Okay, so it's time to talk about end times. It's a very, very big topic. So this is probably I'm guessing, going to take many hours. This video will be primarily focused on overview type things, like just to kind of give you the overall picture, and very, very superficial overall picture. And we'll drill down into various topics in future videos. So one of the core things we'll be going into is Matthew 24, and the role of the Antichrist, and the timeline of the end, and things like that. We'll also possibly debunk the odd false doctrine concerning the end times, because there's a lot of doctrines out there that are completely and totally false. They have no evidence or backing whatsoever in Scripture. So it's important to go over those. And so another thing is not really sure how long this will take. It could be a very, very lot of videos, so we'll see. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I felt inspired to take down all the stuff I've learned about end times, and just try to get it onto paper, in terms of a diagram and things like that. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff missing from here. Like I said, end time study is very complicated and time consuming. So I would say I've probably got maybe, 30% of what I know in this diagram, maybe. We'll see. But so let's kind of get started here. So as I said, we're going to do an overview. So we got the central thing here linking to Matthew 24. Matthew 24 is essentially a very precise but broad, like not detailed, outline of the end times. It is very specific about what will occur, when, and how. But it does not give great details. Those details can be found through extensive use of Scripture, both Revelation, Daniel, Zechariah, various other parts of Scripture. And so as you can see, this is just a mural board. I will post the link in the description, and you can go check it out. It's important to look at the legend. So possible direct correlation, these dotted lines are possible direct correlations. So in other words, I see these scriptures that are connected as being directly connected. So for example, the final judgments of Revelation are in fact directly connected to Matthew 24. And so that's one premise I'm making. So think of these as a premise. And pure grouping, solid line, colors don't matter. Solid line, they're just grouped. They could be correlated, probably are, but not really sure. Ordered sequence. And it's important to note that this diagram will be morphing all the time. I'll be updating it fairly regularly as we're making these video series. Ordered sequence is just that. If the arrows occur with this dashed line, that means those things are occurring in that very specific sequence. So for example, obviously Matthew is in a certain order, so I've put arrows between the verses in Matthew to signify that these are all in the order of those verses. And we kind of separated them out so that we can drill down into the specific verses and get more details. I might put commentaries in them. I always put the scriptures in them, or I try to. like I say, this is a work in progress. And we will, so we'll be able to drill in. I'll give you we're not going to drill in in this video, but I'll give you one example here. So currently all I have here is the many antichrists. Jesus said, many will come in his name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. So there are many antichrists from his time, Jesus' time, till now. But so let's get started with the overview. So Jesus gives a precise outline of the end. This was written long before Revelation, and yet Revelation gives much, much greater detail than Jesus gave at the time. And as we know, the revelation is the revelation of Jesus, signified by, or given through his angel to John, and even Jesus speaks in some cases in the book of Revelation. So obviously the first thing that's going to happen, and has already been happening for 2,000 years, is many will come in his name and say, I am the Christ. And wars and rumors of wars will be the next thing. That's kind of been happening, but not related to end times. Wars and rumors of wars happen all the time, but things will get particularly bad just before the end. In a moment, I mentioned that the wars and rumors of wars are not related to end times. I didn't quite mean that. What I meant is that all the past 2,000 years was not related to end times. All of those wars. I do believe that the more recent wars, like in Israel, in the Ukraine and stuff like that, I believe all of these are culminating towards an end time great war, and with the Antichrist taking power after that war. And of course, these things are covered in Revelation as well as other scriptures in the Old and New Testament. So then we have famines and pestilences, obviously connected to Revelation again, and so the book of Daniel talks about how we are appointed. Some of us are appointed to die for Christ. Some of us are not. If we are appointed to die, he will give us the strength to endure. And the book of Revelation calls it the faith and the patience of the saints. We have faith and patience because we know the end is coming. And all we have to do is wait and trust in him and wait. And it will all be over. In the end, love will wax cold, and that will cause many to fall away, and it will cause people to begin to persecute the church and things like that. So then, as that's all occurring, the Antichrist will come, and yes, just to confirm, there is an Antichrist, like the Antichrist, but there is also many Antichrists, but there is the Antichrist of the end. The book of Daniel makes absolutely perfectly clear that this Antichrist will show up on the scene. The book of Revelation makes perfectly clear that the Antichrist will show up on the scene and overcome Christians. So preaching of the gospel will become big in the end times. So you might say this is a revival of sorts. God's kingdom will continue to grow and prosper, even in the midst of persecution. In fact, more so in the midst of persecution. So, as the preaching of the gospel is happening, the Antichrist will set up the abomination of desolation in the temple, and he'll proclaim to be God. We will look into the scriptures pertaining to that and talk about how all of that gets fulfilled. It is important to note. I guess now's a good time to mention this. It is important to note that a lot of people believe these scriptures were fulfilled in 70 AD, and that they're not going to be fulfilled again. That is completely false. It's so obviously false because because the book of Revelation was written, like, I think it was 25 years after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So if they were fulfilled in 70 AD, it would be kind of silly for God to inspire John or give John visions to write in a book. Actually, you think about Revelation, it's not really inspired. It's like direct revelation to John about what to write in excruciating detail. And so why would God do that 25 years after fulfillment? Makes no sense, right? So definitely 70 AD has nothing at all to do with the book of Revelation. So 70 AD destruction actually was a fulfillment of Zechariah 11. You can check out my Everlasting Covenant testimony for more information on that one. I'll try to put a link here up on the right side. I don't know if is this the right side or is this the right side? I don't remember. So yeah. So we'll be talking about in depth about the danger of the Antichrist and various things like that. We'll be talking about the revelation, the trumpet, the rapture, the end of time, and how all of these things correlate. So I'm not sure that what this one is about. We'll have to look at that later. But there will be a sign of the Son of Man coming in the heavens. I don't know for sure what that will be. I don't think Scripture really tells us. But I've kind of pondered. I wonder if it will be Jesus himself in the universe approaching Earth from a great distance, and so brighter than the sun. And over the course of time, they see this bright light approaching Earth. Imagine how terrifying that would be to the people of the earth, right? You know, Book of Revelation, as the seals are being unleashed, it says that they cry out for the rocks to fall on them because they recognize that Jesus is coming back and that they were wrong. And so they'd rather die than face him. And so yeah, it's fairly clear that they know he's coming in advance. And so the final trumpet, of course, is the trumpet of Revelation, that final seventh trumpet. It's so crystal clear. After we've gone over all of these things, and you've studied them for yourself, I believe that it'll be very, very clear. But keep in mind, I'm always open to changing some of my viewpoints. I don't believe any one person has all of it, and it's always useful to discuss these things. But so there will be the signs of his coming, and it'll be a surprise to the world, because they won't know till just before the end. And then, of course, there will be time no longer. And this time no longer will correlate with the trumpets and the vials and the seals all being released. And then here we'll talk about, there's lots of details on the Antichrist here. I'm not sure how long it'll be before I make another video, but because I have to go through all of these details, make sure I remember everything that's happening there, and that sort of thing. But so there's so much evidence of the Antichrist. It's kind of crazy. And we'll probably get into lots of different details, like prophetic fulfillment of the Antichrist, and how some people think some of these prophecies were fulfilled with Alexander the Great, and various things like that. We'll talk about that stuff. So one of my primary premises is that effectively, the book of Revelation has the seals, the trumpets, and the vials. I believe quite strongly that all of these happen in parallel. They do not happen in sequence. The visions came in sequence for John, but I believe that they are actually together. Not necessarily like perfectly together, like there might be like a seal and a trumpet after that, and then a vial before or after either of those, just kind of together. But as we mentioned earlier, the dotted arrows mean direct correlation. This one's questionable. I'm uncertain. I put question marks on it. But there's some other ones. Seems quite clear that they're like directly correlated. And then there will be the war of all wars, of course. And as these things are occurring, what happens before all of these is the temple is closed before the vials, right? And afterwards, the temple is opened after the trumpets. So it's kind of interesting that it closes before the vials and opens after the trumpets. When the trumpets are in linear sequence in the book of Revelation, the trumpets are before the vials, like in terms of the sequence of the pages. Why would it close, or why would it open the temple and then later close before the vials, right? I believe that the glory of God fills the temple before all of this, and that's why I show sequence arrows here, right? These are all in sequence together, just kind of flows down together. And then the glory of God leaves the temple and it's opened again. And then the beast and the Antichrist are destroyed. The 1,000-year reign occurs. The judgment is set, and it's the conclusion. We live for eternity. So that's kind of the overview. We'll talk a little bit about, the role of the saints and the 144,000 and things like that as we go. And So I wanted to kind of touch base on what I think how the end times play out in terms of like pre, post, mid-trib sort of deal. I definitely believe in post-tribulation rapture. We will get into a great many details that prove that. I don't think, and I'll be bold about this, I don't think pre or mid-tribulation rapture have any evidence at all. And that might offend some people. My intention is not to offend you. But I think it's very important because I believe that the great falling away, it will be partially caused by false doctrine of the end times. So in other words, pre-tribulation rapture, mid-tribulation rapture. Christians think they're getting a free ticket out of here when all of Scripture points to we're not getting out of here for the end times, and B, God helps his people in the midst of trials. He doesn't rescue them from their trials. And this is a universal concept throughout the entire Word that cannot be refuted, right? But as far as the end time goes, yeah, there's the scriptures are quite clear, both in Daniel and Revelation, that we are appointed to suffer for Christ in the end, during the tribulation. Yeah, so that's kind of my view. I hope that you will stick around, even if you have a different view. I know for me, it doesn't matter what thing I believe. I very rarely look at other people's information that supports me. I go look at the people's information that don't support me. I'll give you one quick example. I don't believe in anthropogenic global warming, and so I've never studied anti-global warming information. I've never studied it. I've only studied the websites that promote the idea of anthropogenic global warming. They're the only information source I've ever had. And I still don't believe in anthropogenic global warming. And the same goes for end times. I've never studied anybody that disagrees with pre-trib or post or mid-trib rapture. It's just not something I'm interested in studying because I want to know if I'm wrong. And so, yeah, that's kind of the rundown. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting overview. I don't really feel very adequate for to be the person to make these videos, but I do have a lot of knowledge on the topic, so I'm hoping that the Lord will help me to convey that to everybody. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So if you happen to watch this video and I've not yet created any other videos, feel free to comment in the comment section and let me know what kind of topics for end time stuff you would like to see covered, because that might actually help me drill down and cover those.